Keith Arthur Bolden, and on behalf of the Alliance Theater, I'd like to welcome you to the first event in the Hands Up of Atlanta series of artistic provocations and conversations on art and activism. As I said, my name is Keith Arthur Bolden, and I'm the co-director of the upcoming production of Hands Up, 7 Playwrights, 7 Testaments, part of the Alliance's season in spring 2020. I'd like to extend a welcome to all the community organizations in attendance tonight, and a special thank you to our community partners and co-hosts for this event, the Center for Ethics at Emory University, the Baton Foundation, and Black Men Smile. Love Black Men Smile. Tonight's program delves into a central theme in Hands Up, the portrayal and the policing of the Black male image, featuring an incredible lineup of local artists and activists, community members joining us for a conversation about how their work challenges stereotypical notions and shapes alternatives. To start, we're going to screen 2 short films that we have created exclusively for this series, providing a sneak peek into Hands Up. Now, Hands Up was created as an immediate artistic response to the shooting of Michael Brown and a confrontation with police brutality in Black communities all across this country. The New Black Fest in New York, with artistic director Keith Joseph Atkins, commissioned different playwrights to process artistically their thoughts, their feelings about being Black in America. The result was 7 testaments compiled together into one piece. Now, in the spring, my protege, my former student, my partner in crime, the wonderful Alexis Woodard, and I, along with the Alliance team, will be presenting this play. We'll be devising this play along with our collaborators. This is going to be an exciting journey that will be challenging for some, and for some may be triggering. And for most, it will be uncomfortable. And what I challenge us is to lean into that discomfort. Ask the questions, listen for the answer, and not be afraid of what you lose, but look forward to what you gain. Now, what you are about to see are film shorts for 2 of the monologues in Hands Up. The first will be Superiority Fantasy, and the second will be They Shootin'. These were both filmed on location across Atlanta this past month, and so you'll recognize a few spots. The actors are Lamar Cheston, Raquel Charles, and Markel Gay. Typically, with these engagement conversations that the Alliance has, we may go to donors' homes or board members' homes or someone in the community's homes, and we'll talk about the play. And usually we present a scene from the play with actors, or a directing conversation, or something with the collaborators. But since we are in this virtual world, the Alliance, we decided that it might be engaging to give a virtual experience of how we see the play, and not just have 2 actors sitting on screens and boxes reading. So these short films will serve as springboards to the conversations that we'll be having at each of these events. Now, I ask you to please enjoy Superiority Fantasy and They Shootin'.
Why do you see me like this? What have I done? Wait. Why? What did I do? Wait, I'm not what you think. Why do you see me like this?
No, I'm one of the good ones, huh? One of the good ones. I'm one of the good ones. Wait, please. No, I'm not. Wait.
What you're about to hear will not be pleasant for your ears.
Trapped between two panes of glass, a bird with its wings and a bird brain banging itself. Confused. It can see out both sides, but can't get free. The bird more frantic, banging and pecking and flapping its wings against the glass. The night crisp air is dark, and so am I. My mind flutters, the image of tattered flags blowing gently, swaying. A car rolls by slow, daring me to go back to the window rusty. Face another day of hooded sweatshirts and bloody headlines, thump and bang against the glass.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for watching the world premiere of our short films. This is we have to reimagine, re-envision, and sometimes recreate. But the art will not be silenced. The movement will not be silenced. And thank you for watching. And now I'd like you to please welcome to the Zoom stage the panelists for tonight's discussion on recasting the Black image, and your host and moderator, Carlton Mackey, Director of the Ethics and the Arts Program at Emory University.
Thank you so much, Keith, and I appreciate you for bigging up Black Men Smile so emphatically in the beginning. My name is Carlton Mackey, and I am pleased to be your moderator and host for the evening. As you may have read in my bio, I'm the director of the Ethics and the Arts Program at the Emory University Center for Ethics, and our partnership with the Alliance Theater is a long-standing one. We've been partnering with them for about 6 years now to partner with our Ethics and the Arts Program and the Ethics on This Stage component. And so I'm pleased to, even in the midst of this environment, to still be maintaining that partnership, and I'm delighted to be here this evening. Before I introduce the panel, I'd like to hear from you all about what stood out to you in the films that you just saw. We hope that tonight's conversation is a conversation, but that it is also engaging. And this is the first opportunity, and you will have several, to be able to share your reflections or thoughts about the various films. And in the case, and later you will hear a song that we play. So we invite you to share some of your thoughts in the chat when invited, and we invite you to do so now. So take about a minute and write a word or a response, a few words about what you saw, what you heard, and what stood out to you about the films that we just saw. So it is, I see certainly some. Thank you all so much for participating. I see a lot of comments here, some of them around the haunting nature of what was displayed. Stacy Boyd quotes a line from the film that actually stood out to me as well. It says, I'm one of the good ones. I had an immediate response to that, and it was not, it wasn't, it stood out to me as well. I see Keith Arthur Bolden says, why do you see me like this? Thanks, Keith. Jarring, profound, stylistic. I was able to witness the ways that the society that surrounds us paints people of color as the bad guys. It was painful. And I'll offer one more reflection. Lacey Fry says the juxtaposition in the first film between the image of the Black man that the police officer saw versus reality. Thank you all so much. You will be invited throughout tonight's evening on a couple of occasions to reflect in the chat, and you will be invited at the end to use the you will be invited at the end to post questions, and we'll have a 15-minute question and answer at the end of the program. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you our panelists. We have a distinguished group that I'm really, really glad that I'm able to join. We have with us tonight Mr. Mark Kendall, who is a writer, actor, comedian, and the creator of The Magical Negro. We'll see a clip from a sketch that Mark produced this evening as well. We have with us Eugene H. Russell IV, who's a musician, songwriter, and actor. We're pleased to welcome Mr. Charles Stevens, who's the founder of the Counter Narrative Project, and Anthony Knight, who is an educator and founder of the Baton Foundation. Greetings, gentlemen. Thank you all so much for agreeing to do this. As I said in the beginning, I'm really honored to be able to be here with you all tonight and for us to have this conversation. I'm grateful to be able to kick off this series and for us to take up the space that we're going to take up, for us to occupy this space and to be able to have what I hope is an intimate conversation between us as Black men, for us to take up this space and for us to, though it is called recasting the Black male image, I believe that in your excellence, in your brilliance, in the ways that you are unapologetic, in the ways that you take up your space, and in the ways that you seek to embody all that you are versus simply trying to reject those things that you are not. I believe that in you doing that, and in each of you, I've had an opportunity to learn more about your work in the process of doing this. I believe that in doing that, you are recasting the image. I created a platform, as Keith shouted out in the beginning, called Black Men Smile. And our motto is celebrating the way we see ourselves. And I hope that tonight, I hope that you leave feeling as if you're celebrated. I hope that the audience is able to celebrate your gifts, to celebrate the things that you offer, and to see you as you embody resistance, but also as you flourish and as you thrive and in the beauty that you possessed. So with that, I'd like to kick off our first question. And this first question is for all of you to respond, if you will. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your work and the ways it functions to, as I said, to celebrate the way we see ourselves. Or if you want to pose it as a question of resistance, how does the work that you do function to resist against the often narrowly defined ways that Black men are portrayed and understood? And I invite whoever would like to start.
I'll jump in there. So it's good to be here, folks. Yeah, the way that my work resists the images cast about and upon us, a couple of ways. Artistically, I put forth a narrative that counters the false narratives, right? So there is a lot to be said about the necessity of addressing the false narratives and tearing them down and pointing out the many holes in them and the sheer falsehood of them. But as I get older, I try to make sure that I, at the very least, match that energy by creating narratives that counter, by pushing narratives that counter that. So as a musician, that's writing songs that push a narrative that counters what society thinks we are, who society thinks we are. I'm also founder of Men Not Myths, which is a line of tees and hoodies that celebrate Black fatherhood. So that is a pushback on the false narratives by simply lifting up the narrative that that I've always known, since I was growing up. So that's how I resist. The two main ways in which I resist.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Stevens, the founder of the Counter Narrative Project. And we do our work in three ways. One, we create content in our effort to counter the narrative, if you will. So we have a podcast and we have a blog called The Reckoning, and we also have a YouTube channel. We also create resources. So we create reports and we create discussion guides and curricula. And finally, we develop partnerships across social justice movements. I got into this work in part because from the beginning, I knew that it was important to be involved in the realm of ideas and stories and narratives, particularly about Black men. That was sort of like the battlefield where I decided that I wanted to be involved, recognizing the ways that narratives could be weaponized against me, recognizing the ways that stories and public narratives have consequences, often in the realm of policy. So as an activist, I knew that I had to be front and center in the realm of narrative. And so that's really the spirit in which I founded the Counter Narrative Project, and also wanting to give something back to Atlanta as an Atlanta native and the city where I'm from. And finally, an important part of my work is also about using narratives to have critical dialogues. As a Black gay man, I see a lot of my, the most important parts of my work is being able to have conversations across lines of difference and really forcing narratives and stories and sharing our stories as a way to build community.
I'd like to come back to you on that point. What are the ways that you talked about modalities for resistance, and then you brought up a community and talking about the Black gay community. What are ways that the counter narrative, if you had to frame your work as a celebration of an identity versus a resistance against, with that community in particular, how would you describe the work of the Counter Narrative Project in that modality and in that vein?
Well, I'll try to respond in the way that we frame our work, and I hope this gets at what you're asking. But I'll also say that for us, countering the narrative doesn't mean pushing a perfect narrative. You know, I always say that loving Black people and loving Black men isn't just about loving perfect Black men. It's about loving complicated narratives. It's about loving flawed. It's about loving, what about when we're not perfect, right? And I think so often we feel like to counter the narrative is to create a perfect narrative. And I think that that's very much a part of the culture of white supremacy that's crushing us, right? So for us, it's about creating complicated narratives. It's about showing the complexity of all that Black men represent. It's about showing that we have diverse stories and experiences, and those are good too, so that you don't have to have a perfect narrative. And oftentimes in our society, I will say that, how do I put this? Someone doesn't have to be perfect for us to fight for them. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we feel like in order to fight for somebody, we have to cast their narrative in a certain way. And so the counter narrative both resists that, but I also think even in recognizing the complexity of our narratives, that's worth celebrating too, that we can celebrate all the parts of ourselves as Black men, and certainly within the context of Counter Narrative Project, Black gay men, without having to feel like you have to fit into this sort of perfect narrative, what some people might call the politics of respectability, if you will. And so that's, and we also think that part of proliferating narratives is an important part of building power.
Mm-hmm. I like that you introduced this word of respectability in that moment, and in pushing against this narrative of perfection, because it makes me think immediately about the consequence of the ways that we are perceived, and our response in moments of tragedy is often that we have to project images of particularly Black men that have been slain. We have to present them as perfect for the wrong that has been done to even be considered a wrong. So what happens is, well, he was selling cigarettes, or he had marijuana in his system. And so, and I'm talking in those two cases about Eric Garner and in Mike, or in Mike Brown's case, these things that are said, and it's as if what you are offering is that, and I wrote it in the chat, is that creating a counter narrative does not mean creating a perfect one. And I put that there with your name by it, and I think it's an excellent quote for us to earmark. So thank you so much.
And you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of empathy.
That is the point. Anthony, tell us a bit about your work and the way that it functions in the modalities of resistance and or celebration for Black men.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Carlton, and thank you to the Alliance for providing this opportunity for us to consider this topic. I actually don't see my work as resistance work. I guess some might call it that, of course, but that certainly was not in my mind when I created the Baton Foundation, and it is not in my mind now. I am at my core an educator. The root of that word, to educate, is to bring that from which is within, without. And that's really how I am guided. For me, it's important to help Black boys, in my case, and the general public better understand who they are, so that perhaps by doing so, they might better value who they are. And then with that, given the environments in which we live, and the United States certainly is not unique in this, but given the many environments in this world in which Black people have their lives, I think it's important for us to have a better sense of who we are, so that when challenges come to us, as they do to all human beings, we might be able to navigate them in ways that are more productive. So I just don't see what I do as resistance, although, again, I understand how some might consider it to be so, but that's not the thrust of what I'm trying to do. We have, at least right now, two programs that we do. One is the Cultural Heritage Program, which is a Saturday morning seminar for Black boys, during which we help them understand more about themselves, aside from being Black and a boy, but just as a human being. We also help them understand more about Black history and Black culture. And then we also try to help them understand what we call self-mastery, which is how do we navigate the challenges that are certain to come to them at various points in their lives. We also offer public programs, because I'm a museum educator by training. And one thing I learned early on in my museum education work was that it's not good to only benefit children, because when they go back to their homes, to their communities, they're going back to people who are not having the same kinds of intellectual experiences that they may be having, or cultural experiences that they may be having in a museum or in a given cultural environment. And so with that understanding, it was important for me that the team and I create opportunities for the public to learn more about various aspects of Black history and culture. And we've been really fortunate to have just an amazing lineup of scholars and performers and others who help us put forth cultural and historical educational programs for the Atlanta community, most of which before COVID were held at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And now we're starting to do a lot online, as everyone else is. So those are the two main things that we're doing right now.
So I can't tell you what to think about your work for sure, but I am driven in the work that I do to understand. I'm driven by a framework that was offered that I use so many times in doing my work with Black Men Smile by Alice Walker. She says that joy is the secret to resistance. And often, you know, another thing that we use is talking about Black joy being revolutionary, just the act of, and what it requires to even see ourselves as what we are, and not simply for that perception of ourselves to be shaped by that which is said about us. And so you may not frame it in that way, but I appreciate your work, and I very much see it as alongside so many other modalities for resistance. And I appreciate you for your work.
I'll just say this, Carlton, I understand what you're saying, and I hear that often, but for me, and you know, maybe we'll have a chance to, maybe someone in the audience or another panelist may be able to add to this as we move forward. But I guess for me, when I think of resisting, when I think of resistance, I think of pushing back against something.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm not really concerned about white folks. I'm not really concerned about the so-called dominant culture.
Mm-hmm.
As a human being, a divine being that comes from wherever we all come from, I just don't see life framed that way. And so I will maintain that my work is not resistance work. It is an effort to make manifest the divine that is within us all, and to have Black boys and Black people better understand that. And so that's always my position. But I do understand what you're saying, but that's just always my position.
Well, that, my friend, is going in the chat because I value and respect that pushback, but it's a pushback that is valuable and that does advance us. And I feel that it is congruent with all that we're saying, certainly tonight. And I will note that in our private conversations, it was you as strongly as anyone that challenged us all, and we were in agreement for this conversation to be framed very much in the way that's consistent with what you just said. I want to read that back. Our work is an effort to make manifest the divine that is within us all. Thank you so much for that. Mark, a very different, at least different than what we've heard so far, talent and approach to recasting the image. I would invite you to share a little bit about your work, if you will. And we have the pleasure, after you offer us whatever you would like, because I know we're going to see some of your work here in just a second, but to kind of maybe either set up the video that we're about to watch, or introduce yourself and help us get a sense of your work and what you do and why.
Certainly. My name's Mark. I'm a comedian, so I perform improv, sketch, stand-up, both live and with video. And you know, you would ask earlier about like, how do we celebrate? And I think I celebrate myself and others through narrative. You know, I feel like narratives are what we cling to the tightest, more so than anything else. And so if you're able to like craft your own narrative, I think that's really powerful. So in addition to, you know, writing my own stuff, when teaching, I like teaching improv and sketch writing, because you're kind of teaching the building blocks to people, even if they don't want to go on to become writers, you know, how to craft their own narratives, how to craft their own stories. So the piece that you're going to see is a video that I released this week. And it's a sketch about, well, this November, Gwinnett County is going to vote on whether or not to expand MARTA. And oftentimes when this is put up for a vote, it's voted down. And a big reason is people say that Black crime is going to come to whatever neighborhood. And so this examines that this kind of takes a look at that claim and sort of tries to pick it apart with comedy and with the absurd. And so that's what this piece is.
Okay. You comfortable with us showing it now?
Oh yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Now, it's finally happened. They have decided to build MARTA trains straight into Gwinnett County. So you know what this means. We are finally taking black crime to Gwinnett County. How else were we supposed to get up there beforehand? With our cars? Listen, a MARTA train has never been pulled over. That's all I'm saying. Now, the president says that the suburbs are in danger of being destroyed. So that means we gotta hurry up and rob them fast before they're gone. What is it, Ricky?
Can we stop at Waffle House beforehand?
Ricky, we don't have time, man.
We never have time.
Ricky, I just said there's a dark, menacing force out there looking to make the suburbs vanish.
My bad, man.
It's all right. All right, so here's how it's gonna go. Ricky, you're bringing the guns. Leon, you're bringing the knives. Ronnie, you're bringing Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point, mainly because it's the next book in our book club, but also because we all know the greatest weapon is the written word. Now, we're gonna meet at 5 Points MARTA Station, hop on the Gold Line northbound headed towards Doraville Station. That's gonna take us all the way to the new Gwinnett County MARTA Station. Yeah, Ricky, what's up?
What if you guys do the robbery and I go get the Waffle House? Now I get you extra. It's my treat.
Ricky, man, we need you here. Listen.
You need me?
Yeah, man. Yes, of course.
You guys need?
Without you, we don't have any guns. Without you, we're far less violent. Careful, man. Now, once we show up at the new Gwinnett County MARTA Station, we're still gonna be 6 miles away from the house that we wanna rob. Now, 6 is the devil's number, so instead we're gonna hop on the 20 bus. It's gonna take us 7 miles away. That's good luck. Now, once we arrive at the house, we gotta remember, a lot of work and school is virtual these days, so we gotta set up a distraction to draw them outside. So Ronnie is gonna perform a one-person adaptation of season 4 of Friends.
So no one told you life was gonna be this way.
Yo, man, you got talent. Now, once we're inside, we only have time to go after the good stuff. I'm talking about their UGA hats, all right? And their Encyclopedia Britannica collections. But if we have a little extra time, we're also gonna swipe all of their essential oils, specifically Young Living brand. We're gonna change their Wi-Fi password to Black Lives Matter. We're gonna log on to their premium Spotify account and listen to my favorite DMX song, the one where he goes like, y'all gonna make me lose my mind, up in here, up in here. It's a genius song, because when you examine the punctuation further, it goes up in here, question mark, dot, 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 up in here, period. Which means that in the ellipses, DMX realizes that it is in fact here that he's supposed to lose his mind, which of course begs the question, how can someone be so self-aware and yet also lose his mind? Well, I argue that DMX is actually instead drawing a distinction between the ego and the self, and he's saying that we can only discard the ego. Once we do that, we reach a higher plane of self. That higher plane, what is it, Ricky?
Are you avoiding Waffle House because you prefer IHOP?
I hate IHOP. They put pancake batter in their omelets. What is wrong with them? Now, before we go, we want to make sure that the suburbs don't disappear. So we're going to take one of the UGA hats, we're going to bury it in the ground, water it with essential oils, and then hopefully in 6 months, a McMansion will grow in its place. Ricky, are you making Waffle House?
Uh-huh.
Oh man, there's so much there's so much I want to say about that clip. I want to open it. I want to come back to you, Mark, but I want to invite our panelists to respond to what they just saw. I see a huge smile on your face, Eugene, and I think I'm gonna have you go first. I'd like for you to speak to what spoke loudest to you in the clip. What scene stirred the most emotion or that just struck you, and why do you think that was the case? And I invited each of you to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant work, Mark. It's hilarious and so true. What I found most entertaining and truthful was the pushback against this image of the Black monolith, right? So all the things that he was saying he's into, so counter, what people assume we're into. Even with the DMX, it's like
that DMX part. My bad, but bruh.
No, yeah.
That DMX piece, bruh.
you know, so it's like, I don't know. I think that's what has me laughing. It's like, yo, we're not all the same. Like, we're not all into the same thing. Like, we love what we love, and we don't need people's approval for it, or you know, a that's good stuff. Yeah, you're into the good stuff. Or like, we don't care. It's like we're into what we're into, and it's cool for different reasons. Even the stuff that you assumed we were into, maybe we're into it for a different reason. So I just love the fact that it just flew in the face of so many stereotypes. And being from Atlanta, just the ridiculousness of the MARTA, the fight against the MARTA expansion, you know, it's just like, okay, we want to play crazy. Okay, sure, we're going to come in and take all your essential oils. That's what we want. You know? So yeah, it's just hilarious, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my reaction to it was very personal. I too grew up in Atlanta, and I think if you grew up in Atlanta around, like, especially if you're of a certain age, I guess, you just didn't go to Gwinnett County. Like, I didn't go to Gwinnett County until I was in my 30s. And even then I was like, it was like a foreign world to me. And so things like transportation and the way the metro area, I mean, not to just go back to politics, but even like how, I guess how the suburbs sort of evolved and how certain folks were kept out, you know, it's stunning to me. So I really kind of like, it just kind of got me thinking about like what my own, I mean, I guess the play invites everyone to kind of look at and question stereotypes. And I actually went to, and maybe that was the beautiful subversion of the work. It's like my stereotypes of Gwinnett County and people from Gwinnett County, and like, what does it mean? And I do kind of picture UGA hats and the sort of tyranny of McMansions and things like that. Although I do realize that, you know, that's not all of Gwinnett. But yeah, when I first went to Gwinnett County, it was like visiting. It was definitely a different kind of world for me. So I can appreciate that.
Anthony, would you like to offer a reflection?
I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, a good bit of it was maybe lost on me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a little confused actually by some of it.
So Mark, how about you, in some ways, you know, I was going to say that it speaks for itself, but I'm actually really glad, Anthony, that was your response, so that my follow-up question to Mark, it could allow you to unpack it, which I was going to do anyway, and maybe offer us reflections about hearing what Eugene said, hearing what Charles said, and hearing the ways that for Anthony, some of it was missed. Talk to us a little bit about what you hoped to accomplish with that, and what drove the different, I would certainly say the caricatures, the way that you played on stereotypes, the way that you subverted them, and maybe comedy's role, challenging as it may be, in us talking about not wanting to perpetuate stereotypes, maybe the creative tension and the tension that's created by putting them in our face, but then using them to amplify voices and to, dare I say, resist, but to create a counter narrative.
Yeah. So I guess as far as like resisting or creating a counter narrative, in reference to the sketch that just played, you know, I guess with comedy, you're trying to create a setup and then a punchline, or so you set someone up to think that you're going in one direction, and then you try and flip it. So, you know, so you might say, it's like, oh, we're, you know, so you might say like the president says like the suburbs are in danger of being destroyed, but we don't know who that could possibly be. It's someone else. Or it's just like, we're going to bring guns and knives, but then we're also going to bring books. So like, I guess in terms of the sketch, in terms of ways that I was trying to subvert or to surprise, is almost kind of like, you know, expected thing, and then a surprise, or a surprise thing, and then something serious. And so kind of like rhythmically trying to do that. And then I guess, you know, it hints at kind of like this issue that Atlanta and Georgia has had with public transportation in general, public transportation with highways, with street names, trying to keep people sectioned off and blocked off in certain ways. And so that's what it alludes to, but it doesn't necessarily like take the time to explain that. Yeah.
I want to ask you another question, and it is about comedy in general. And I kind of pointed to where I'm going next when I set up your first question. And it is, comedy runs the risk as an art form of, if it's not understood, of it simply perpetuating. Do you feel the pressure of that, one, and do you feel like it is the responsibility of the comedian to use their work to subvert, or as a means of resistance? Or could it just be funny even if it does perpetuate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess as a comedian, it depends on the comedian, but generally, like, I see my first responsibility is to be funny if I can. Of course, I don't want to perpetuate anything negative, and usually I'm able to guard against that pretty well, because before COVID, you'd go out and you'd perform live, and when you perform live in front of people, you can listen to the kind of laughs that you do get, the kind of laughs that you don't get. It's easy to talk to audience members afterwards and get feedback in all kinds of ways. And so if you're getting feedback that feels like something is negative, then you can always change it. But at the same time, if you don't make certain jokes, or you don't say certain things because you're, afraid of saying something wrong, you also run the other risk, which is you're not talking about certain things that need to be talked about. So my approach is generally, I try to talk about things that I feel passionate about, that maybe come from a personal experience of some kind. But if at any point I feel like, people are getting a negative response from it, like, I'll adjust, but I can't let that stop me from, trying to create things. On the flip side, it's just like if someone's like, oh, I feel like this is negative, I'm not usually going to be the type of person that's just like, oh, it's my right to say whatever, and I'm just not going to change it. So, I try to give myself that flexibility to change if it isn't, landing the way that I like for it to.
This entire series, we are the first of several events that Alliance is hosting, and all of our events are framed under the banner of Hands Up Atlanta, Art and Activism. And comedy is certainly a vehicle, is an art form that is used as that, for that. And I think about a number of ways that I've seen it function in that way by some of our brightest comedians. We saw Cat Williams in his Supreme sponsored sketch. We certainly know the historic and the value of Dave Chappelle in that in that modality, that he uses comedy as an art form and as a vehicle for activism. But there's other art forms, and I appreciate your work in that vein and how it is functioned and how you use this to speak to global issues, but very directly to local issues right here in Atlanta. Another art form is music. We appreciate the value and certainly know that music has played an integral role in how we understand where we are in society, and has been used as a vehicle for activism. And Eugene, you wrote a song that it functions in a different way. It does not highlight or amplify or caricaturize really anything. It simply functions more, as you were saying in the beginning, as a counter narrative. So would you like to set up your song? We'd love to hear it if you'd set it up. And I would invite you all, again, I did not do this and I apologize to the audience, remind you that you are welcome, and we invite you to, as Eugene's song is being, as we're hearing it, after we hear him speak, we'll play the song. But we invite you to use the chat to share comments about what you hear, what stood out, and how you think it is functioning effectively as a vehicle.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Carlton. Yeah, so the song in my music life, I go by Eugene the Fourth. So you'll see that on the screen, you all. But the name of the song is Brand New Day, and I don't want to explain it too much before the people hear it, but I will say it does revolve around the idea of it paints the picture of what the other side of the fight for justice and freedom looks like. So what are we fighting for, right? So when you're fighting, it's encouraging, you know, and often galvanizes people when they get a glimpse of what it is they're fighting for, you know. So it's just my attempt to paint the picture of what my community and my people are fighting for, you know. So if we realize freedom this side of the Jordan, what does it look like? So this song attempts to paint that picture.
Okay, Pastor.
Pass around the plate.
Over this side of the Jordan River.
That's right. That's right. Oh, and it features my mom, so you'll hear her voice on there. She passed in 2009, but you'll hear her on there.
Could see it, hey, I can hardly believe it, so take my hand and see it, like a sunrise through God's eyes. See that cop on the corner, he lives here and knows everybody. See that building on the corner, means less to him than our bodies. And our kids can be kids when he's near, cause he works for the people. And we can fire the ones who don't serve and don't work for the people. And it's a beautiful day to be us and be we and be free to be free. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. This morning saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. See that bank on the corner, hey, it's invested in the people. Oh, now look who's the owner. How the tables have turned for the people. See, now they got loans for their homes and got loans for their business and got the power to back who they feel has a mind for their interest. And it's a beautiful day to be us and be we and be free to be free. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day.
Let the church say amen. Brother Anthony, I want to come directly to you after hearing that. You know, before we heard the song, Eugene, you talked about Jordan, and that is not an indirect reference to a spiritual. That is absolutely a direct spiritual reference. I sense, and we haven't talked a whole lot, but I sense from that song, from that refrain, from you even saying what you said about your mother, that you are a spiritually rooted and grounded human being. And it was you, Anthony, that talked about rooting your work, not rooting your work in being in front loading the gaze of white folk, and it being about our own divinity. So I would invite you to respond. With that being said, and with the spiritual nature of what I'm projecting onto Eugene is the spiritual nature of his work and of who he is. What is your response to a song like that and a refrain that says it's a beautiful day to be us and be we and be free? You're muted, brother. Unmute yourself.
My apologies. It's a beautiful song, and it reminded me of the songs I grew up with in the late 60s and early 70s. I was thinking specifically of Curtis Mayfield. Keep On Pushing was a song that I remember very well from my youth. James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Then when I was in high school, McFadden and Whitehead, Ain't No Stopping Us Now. I mean, to me, it was it reminded me of those kinds of songs, which, you know, again, speak to us as a people and not really giving any weight to those who might not value us as we value ourselves, or who might not see us in the light in which we were certainly created. That, of course, is their problem, as Toni Morrison says. So as I was listening to it, I was thinking about those kinds of songs that I remember from my youth.
Some of the comments in the reflection are hallelujah. Sandra says hallelujah. I can see it and it will come. Such an uplifting song. The song gives a sense of community and creates a happy mood. Great work. And some people asked about where can they find the song. And when we come back to you in a second, Eugene, I want you to be able to, I want you to tell us that so that me and the folks in the audience can know how to access it. But Charles, Mark, how do you respond to that? How does it connect to your understanding of the topic, the theme of recasting, and to your work in your particular case, Charles, of creating a counter narrative?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful song. I really enjoy both the substance, but also just the artistry. And I feel like in many ways, it's like the perfect, if there was a soundtrack or playlist for this conversation, the song would be perfect. So I'm just grateful that it was shared with us.
Yeah, I just really appreciate the optimism, you know, and sort of like the power in that choosing joy is what really stuck out for me. It's a great song.
Choosing joy. Thank you for that. Eugene, we're coming to the end of our time. Actually, what are your thoughts hearing that, and you know, presenting it in this context?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for the kind words, my fellow panelists, all the people in the chat. I appreciate you. technical note, I got to give a quick shout out to Kari Cabral and Daz IQ for being producers on that thing, and Daryl Deluxe Pruitt for being one of my co-writers on it. But to kind of bring it back to the theme of the night, I was able to spend some time with Vincent Harding, elder now, ancestor now. He co-wrote some of Dr. King's speeches, particularly the Vietnam speech. And so I was able to spend some time with him before he passed, and he challenged me in my artistry to paint the picture of what better looks like. You know, he said, it's our duty as artists in so many ways to comment on what is, right? But in what way do you paint the picture of what could be, right? What we're pushing for? How do you find a way to give us a brief relief and break from the reality and allow us to envision and dream and I still, you know, and I speak of my mom. So my mom passed in 2009. I found some old rehearsal. She was a trained pianist and vocalist. Found some old rehearsal, like some old tapes of her singing around the house. And I knew I wanted to write that song. And then I found a tape of her singing and got up this morning, saw A Brand New Day. And I said, that's it. So my mom actually marched with Dr. King in Albany, Georgia, got arrested with him and everything. So there's very much that part of me that likes to call out the wrong, right? To call out the hypocrisy, to call out the evil. But I have to be mindful, and I remind myself of this as I get older. How am I spending my energy, right? As many things as there are to be torn down, what are we building in place of them? You know, so how am I spending my energy to build? You know, and especially coming off of, I had no idea that this past, well, I had no idea that 2020 would be the way it is, right? The song was already written. And I was speaking to a friend of mine, tossing some ideas around about what the first single would be, because I'm going to be releasing an EP. And so he encouraged me. He was like, yo, this is the song we need right now, you know? And so again, going back to the image thing, how much do we need to remind ourselves and check ourselves on the amount of energy we use obsessing over what's said to be wrong about us and what's wrong about our current situation? You know, we'll end up succumbing to that. You know, like there's gotta be some moment to smile, Black men.
Say that, Eugene.
So that's it, you know, to try to bring it back to the image thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we centering our thoughts and our energy on? You know, again, okay, we're tearing down this and that, but what are we building?
There is so much that that can be said. There's so many responses that there's ways that I want to invite each of your voices, but we are coming to the end of our time, and we want to honor our commitment to leave space for the audience to ask questions. So we invite you all to use the Q&A function to type questions, and I'm going to read some of them out loud and ask our panelists to respond. So we have one question now, and oh man, I see it. The question is, what narrative can we use to uplift Black people in poverty? What narrative should they focus on? That question is a question. The question that I see here posed in the Q&A. It's the one that I see in the Q&A. And I'll open it to any of our panelists.
I can start. I'm not sure I completely understand what the individual is asking. I'm really confused how a narrative can uplift a people out of poverty. And then what narrative can they focus on? And I just wonder, is poverty always the result of something that someone has done? And so if it's not the result, in some cases, of something that the person has not done, then I'm a little confused about why we would want them to focus on what they should do. So the question for me is a little confusing, and I don't know what I'm not sure.
I'll jump in there to kind of pick up on what you were putting down a little bit, Anthony. Yeah, I think the answer to that question is not necessarily what we want them to do or think, but what we're willing to do to help and uplift. So I think regarding poverty and the less fortunate, the questions that should be asked are questions that we should answer, because I don't believe in the pull yourself up by your own bootstraps theory, especially when somebody keep cutting the straps. People need help, you know what I mean? So I think I understand where the question is coming from and what they're getting at, but I don't think that there's a narrative that can help somebody in poverty. I think the onus is on people in a position to help,
What role can or do the arts play in fueling the radical imagination of the Black community? I love that question. What role can the arts, or what role do the arts play in fueling the radical imagination of the Black community? And I would add, what even then is the function of a radical imagination?
Well, I think all social movements have an arts movement that's connected. I think artists have played a really important role in resistance and social movements. And so I see them as being very indispensable. One of my hopes is that to inspire the radical imagination and even to inspire civic participation as we are facing an election, I believe that there absolutely should be a role for playwrights to be a part of, an artist, but I guess specifically playwrights in this context. I would love to see playwrights have residencies in movement organizations to listen to stories and to really be not only a passive witness, to be actively involved and to collaborate. I would love to see funding available for playwrights to collaborate with community organizers, to collect oral histories, and to be able to fuel those kinds of collaborations, because I think there's such, and in Atlanta, I think that could just be really important. The other thing I want to add is I've been thinking a lot about the role of the artists in social movements, and next year, 2021 will mark the 40th anniversary of HIV, the public, as far as from a public health perspective. And there was a play called Before It Hits Home that came out that was set in 1990. So it's going to be the 30th anniversary of the play and the 40th anniversary. And it really, I think, helped put the HIV as an issue in the consciousness of particularly in Black communities as an artist. And so I hope that as we look at that anniversary, that there's a role for artists to really be a part and connected to the HIV movement, because I think that could be really critical.
Really quick for Mark, where can I find more of your content is a question that was posed.
Oh yeah, you can follow me on IG at Mark Kendall Comedy. I also have a comedian Facebook page and a YouTube channel, both if you just search Mark Kendall. That's where you can find me, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. So
I think this will be the last question if I'm host of the lines can give me a sense of our time. I'll ask this last question and maybe we'll wrap. Jordan Flowers says, thanks to everyone who helped facilitate the event, excited for future events. I was wondering how mediated images of Black men specifically, images you were exposed to growing up and throughout life, shaped your own identity, and how has that affected or informed your current work?
I'll jump in there. When I speak, right, I don't assume that all other Black men had the same experience. Yeah? So for me growing up, my father and mother raised me. So my father was there growing up. I had lots of men around me, lots of Black men around me, my baseball coach, lots of Black men who were shining examples of what it is to be present and a healthy source of things for your community and your family. So that was the norm for me growing up rather than the exception, right? It wasn't the exception to the rule, it was the rule. So with my company, Men Not Myths, that's what I feed off of. You know, I understand that different people have different experiences, speaking specifically of whether or not they had a present father when it comes to Black fathers. But for me, it was the rule as opposed to the exception to the rule. So I try to acknowledge and respect people for their personal experiences, but I push back against it when people speak on their personal experiences as if it's applicable to everyone and the whole world. You know, I'm like, that's what your experience was. I respect that. But because that was your experience doesn't mean that that's what even most Black fathers are or are not doing. Because I'll put this in there real quick. A lot of people don't realize there was a 2012 CDC study that examined the activity of fathers in their children's lives across various ethnic groups. And it actually found something that I didn't need a study to tell me. It actually found that Black fathers were more active in their kids' lives on the daily than fathers of any other ethnic group. So it's that, you know, that wasn't even confirmation or affirmation for me. I'm like, duh, that's how I grew up. It's what I know, you know. So that's how I've been shaped in the way I move.
I'll invite one last word. I know we got to go. I want to leave this question for any panelist that wants to answer it. And it is, I would like for you to offer, what challenge would you offer your co-panelists, the audience, me? What challenge would you leave? What charge would you leave us to do in order to usher in a world that fosters a rich, healthy, beautiful ethos and ushers in a vision of the Black community and for each other that honors the values that we talked about tonight?
I'll offer something. It sounds simple, but it may be a lot more difficult than it sounds. To value Black. To value Black. Sounds simple, but try it. In every aspect of your life.
Final word from the Honorable Brother Anthony Knight. We appreciate each of you for attending. Thank you so much to each of you panelists for your voice, your wisdom, your courage, your challenge. Thank you to the Alliance Theater. Thank you to Keith, Margarita, Sky. Shout out to Hershey, who I worked with so many years with the Alliance Theater. Thank you to the stage manager. Thank you to you all. This has been a great evening, and this is the first event of a series of events that the Alliance Theater is hosting, one each Thursday night for the next 4 weeks. Hands Up Atlanta, Arts and Activism. Tonight's panel was Recasting the Black Male Image, moderated by me, Carlton Mackey, and again, Mark Kendall, Eugene H. Russell IV, Charles Stevens, and Anthony Knight. Thank you all so much.